Good morning painters, and welcome to the third video in the series of basic painting techniques for miniatures. Today I'm going to tell you about the dry brush, that technique that seems magic to all of us when saw for the first time and that we tend to discard as we improve in painting. However, unlike all the tools, applied in the right place it's extremely useful. Personally, it's a technique that I always use at any given moment in the process of painting a miniature. And having said that, let's go with the video. For this technique, I use very dense paint, directly from the pot without dilution. I don't even use a wet palette in this step to avoid excess moisture. Now I load the brush well, mixing and soaking it in paint. Don't be shy with the amount of paint. I remove the excess of paint in the brush very well on a cloth of napkin. May seem contradictory, but loading lots of paint in the previous step and unloading it and these are necessary steps. I usually use the relief of my fingerprints to see when I have downloaded enough paint, but this is something that everyone must adjust to their way of painting. Before starting, we can test how the paint discharge from the brush is on a piece of the miniature. Now we'll see the process itself of painting by dry brush. I apply the first brush strokes softly and preferably on the edges and angles, since the brush still has a lot of paint loaded and thus we avoid excessively staining other smoother areas. In addition, these brush strokes are applied on the areas that will receive the most light, usually upper and front parts. If at any point in the process we notice that the brush still has too much paint, we can discharge it again on the paper until we adjust it to the needs of each moment. We observe that as the process advances, the paint loaded in the brush is less and less, and we can be more aggressive in its application, since the deposited paint covers very little. Thus, we can go from the most angular and detailed areas to flat and smoother ones. In these areas, the applied paint simply helps us transform the black tone of the primer into a more or less dark gray, depending on the exposure of each area. In these images, you can see the final result of the process, a perfectly defined piece with a high degree of cleanliness, ready for a more colorful later work. Now we will see briefly the same process that we have just carried out, but using a brush of a more similar size to the one that we normally use, and that will allow us to a more little precision. We do the same operation. Abundant loading of dense paint on the brush and subsequent discharge of it on a napkin. Next, we begin to paint again, choosing the areas where will be more light first, and leaving most of the paint on the edges of the miniature. As the brush discharges less paint each time, we must be more aggressive in our brush strokes. Looking at these images, it's necessary to note that this is a very aggressive technique and deteriorates the brushes quickly, compared to other techniques such blending, for example. Because of this, I normally use all brushes or synthetic and cheap ones. Here in the image we can see the work of highlighting that we have done. Finally, here's a picture with the reference of the size and the type of the brushes that I use most frequently with this technique, and that go from a size of 1-2 to a huge one for works on large areas. And well, that's enough for today. As always, I hope this video was instructive and that from now you consider the humble dry brush in a better way. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. See you in the next chapter of the series, The Washes. See you soon!